Tai sveiki visi, toliau tęsiam neredaguotą pokalbius ir šiandien turim mėnesinį epizodą su mūsų draugų bičiuliu iš Ukrainos ir aišku pakalbėsim apie viską, kas vyksta tiek pačioje Ukrainoje, tiek Rusijoje žinoma ir pristatyti matyt nereikia, majoras kariuomenės Viktoras Tregubovas, tai pereisim dabar į anglų kalbą. So Victor, I said that we're gonna talk about everything what's happening in Ukraine and of course in Russia and as usual, it's a pleasure to have a major, online talking with us.
I'm
And
a captain.
oh, sorry, Captain. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Still.
Now, well, we are jumping ahead of the curve, so doesn't matter. Maybe in a month, we will have to celebrate that. Okay, Victor. So we see lots of interesting, news today. Maybe let's start from this trivia, which is always usually it's nothing more than a crap. But in Belarus, it looks like they're gonna start, mobilizing the reserve and the military-aged men. What do you think, as a professional, regarding this move? Lukashenko did not join when it was maybe a better situation. Could he join this, aggression at this moment?
I suppose that it's more political than military, because I don't see a possibility for them to launch any attack now. Winter is coming, first of all, and if they was made, Russia plus Belarus made absolute disaster from their first attack, when there actually was elite forces during the attack on Kyiv Oblast. So now try to do that in winter with mobilized people who don't actually want to fight. Well, that's from military perspective, that's highly unlikely. Maybe that's something political. Maybe Lukashenko just want to prove his loyalty, or just to show Putin he's doing something he can do. Maybe that. So I don't suppose it could be effective, because even in particular Belarusian case, I don't believe in the ability of their reservists to fight at all. Belarus never waged any war, and Belarusian, okay, we can talk about Belarusian military and its possibilities, but Belarusian reservists, well, I don't think so. I really know the stance in Belarusian minds and Belarusian people. If Russian people is not really want to fight on their own in Belarus, that's a really light word to say it. Really a light word to put it. They absolutely not going to fight in Ukraine, and I don't suppose it's gonna happen. However, in our situation, well, surprises happens. I told the same just about first attack from Belarus on Kyiv Oblast, just because I never thought that the Russians will do that, because from military perspective it was idiotic, and it was idiotic, but they still did. So surprise happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Plenty of strange things. But what do you think if Russians would send part of their mobilized, conscripts and maybe even professionals from the reserves they still have through the Belarusian to repeat this, Kiev operation? We probably, like who are following the news, heard that there are some rumors about that. What do you think? Is this possible? Are they that stupid?
This is, of course, possible, but that will be a disaster for them. I hope they will try something like that, because disaster for them is good for us. In this case, as I already told, you cannot, expect to do with mobilized personnel the things that elite forces actually couldn't do. And they still got the same, even worse, logistical problems. So they have had a really big logistical problems half a year ago, and from that time, nothing get any better for them. And Ukraine now is much more combat capable, and they cannot actually have an element of surprise on their side. So from my perspective is if they want to commit this particular type of suicide, okay, well, that's their decision. Who am I to blame or to judge?
All right. So this one is, in your opinion, most likely off the table. Okay, so let's ask about the situation in the Kharkiv region where everybody is waiting for the Liman to fall. What is happening there in regards what you can say?
I cannot actually know for sure, but maybe half an hour ago, there was information in our social media that Yampel already gotten in Ukrainian hands. I cannot
so
really
it's from the south side of the Liman, yeah?
Yes, southern eastern, yeah. So I cannot really know, it's not confirmed, but if it is so, well, basically Russian forces in Liman are just in trap. I don't think they can even well retract their forces from there without heavy losses. If it won't be confirmed, and if it isn't so, however, I still suppose that the fall of Liman to Ukrainian hands is just a question of time, and that's not a big time. Several days, maybe a week. Just because the situation there for Russians is really dire.
Can you explain for us who are not military? Because, when we look at the map, we see that, towards Bakhmut, they are doing some kind of offensive, movements. And when you look at this deep state map, you see that there are units stationed there. Why Russians do not redeploy, some of their military from, further down south, to Liman, and basically to just stop this counteroffensive that they are dealing with, from Ukrainian side. What is the logic behind this, offensive that they are doing, just like 50 kilometers away,
I suppose they could just afraid to do that, because last time they did exactly the same. It was actually transfer the forces from Kharkiv direction to Kherson direction to repel a Kherson attack, and, and the result was
and they got trapped.
So I suppose that maybe after that, no Russian military commander wants to be blamed for disaster of such scale, and maybe that's the reason they don't move any reinforcements there from other directions. I know that they move reinforcements from Russia, even the just mobilized persons try to move them near Svatov or so, but well, let's see if it helps them. I have really big doubts about that.
So, in your opinion, if everything, taking all the facts in consideration, they are doing the mobilization, we can talk about it a bit later, but still it's not gonna, the troops are not gonna arrive there like in a day or two in reasonable quantities. So how likely that, it's gonna fall into the hands of Ukrainians, being taken back by Ukrainians, like in a matter of days and like weeks. This whole piece, maybe even Lysychansk and Severodonetsk.
I don't know about Lysychansk and Severodonetsk, truth to be told. I suppose after the fall of Liman, which I prognose that's a question of several days, the next direction of attack could be the northern part of Lugansk Oblast, like Svatova and so on, so on. We don't want, of course, to just to attack Lysychansk Severodonetsk agglomeration directly. It would be just too messy, and we are still nowhere near encircling it. So we need, first of all, to strike on the position in less fortified areas, to cut them from their supplies, and to liberate this agglomeration. So from our perspective, the most logical way, I'm not spoiling here anything, because I suppose the Russians also knew that, is to take back the northern part of, liberate all the Kharkiv Oblast, because there are still some small parts of Kharkiv Oblast occupied by Russians, and go further to, Lugansk Oblast, to the northern part of Lugansk Oblast.
All right, so in terms of this second line that some analysts are talking, is there anything like that up there in this region, like a second line of defense, and the supplies, in terms of rail supplies, are you close enough to actually target any moving supplies towards the front, or it's still like not so bad for them there?
Already doing that, already even some trains with just mobilized persons was hit, as far as I remember, in Lugansk area. So yes, already doing that. About the line of defense, well, they try to make a line of defense, well, with along Oskol River, and it is already penetrated in several places. So the plan is failed. Obviously, the next line of defense, I suppose, should be near the Svatovo, and across the next river. There are several parallel rivers there. The next river is Aidar River, and I suppose they will try to make use of this natural obstacle.
But that river is even smaller, so it's a less of an obstacle.
Yep, but that's the situation they got themselves into, so they don't have much choice.
Okay, so tell us your opinion about this whole mobilization thing, because we see, of course, everybody is seeing most of those stupid videos online. What's happening, in the mobilization centers, around Russia. Some of the analysts are a bit more careful. They're saying that, like, look, this is just the stupidest things you see, but the rest is quite fine. Obviously, everyone who is listening to Arestovich thinks that is gonna collapse in a matter of a few days. So how do you see it?
2-3 weeks maximum.
Yeah. This is a good phrase, So how do you see it? This whole mobilization, can it really help? Can it be a mass, or this uneducated mass is just a dead weight, and it's even like better not to have it than to have it?
I don't want to sound too optimistic or too wishful thinking. However, I suppose this mobilization could be bad for them, even worse than it was before the mobilization. First of all, because their main problems on the front line is not the lack of common soldiery, not the lack of privates, and so on and so on. Their problems are, first of all, lack of commanders, low-rank commanders. First of all, generals is not the problem, but maybe lieutenants, captains actually are the problem there, and actually the problem with logistics and with supply. But if you mobilize many people, you overweight your logistical and supply lines, and it will be even worse. It's like, I don't know, you have a much bigger car, but you have no gasoline for that. And as a result, your car moves even less distance than it was before. And that's, from my perspective, is a problem. Maybe Putin used it as some kind of coercion. Maybe he used it as some kind of, I don't know, trick to show us that he's really serious, that they won't give anything back and whatsoever. But
Victor, one thing we heard is that like 50-60K, he's gonna drop just to basically get things under control right now, in the front lines, and the rest he will have time, like not he, but like the military of Russian Federation, they will have time to kind of prepare, the next iteration. that is what we are hearing.
Well, good luck with that, but where they could possibly find new officers for them, where they could possibly find the new equipment for them, and what actually tanks will they use, what combat vehicles will they use, and what logistical hubs will they use. That's not just like in strategic game when you just build the barracks and made infantry units. That's not the thing that's gonna work. You need also not even to educate them, but also provide them with all kinds of supplies, and that's problematic for now, even for the forces that are already on the battle line. I don't know, maybe they have some kind of reserves, or maybe they can have some kind of promises from China or from some states that will provide everything for them. But still, from the info I got, for now it looks like crap. So maybe, also maybe from my perspective, it's not for attack, but for the defense. Several actions of Putin, like referendums, like releasing of Azov prisoners, maybe shows us that he wants to fixate the results he already got, not to make further attempts to strike in the Ukrainian territory, but just to fixate the status quo. Maybe for that, mobilization could be something useful, because it's easier when you actually fight from the defense and not without need to attack.
But do Russians know how to fight the defensive war? Because they usually fight an offensive war, and they are very bad on defense.
Well, as far as we discovered, Russians are not good in either that or that. So, I cannot actually tell. From my perspective, Ukraine also never actually made strategic offenses, but then, Kharkiv. So, sometimes you discover a new skill in yourself. I don't know what they are planning, really. It seems strange for us, it seems idiotic for us, but still some even Russian analysts are telling us that Putin is now micromanaging all the war, and maybe that's actually the point of everything. Maybe that's just his view of warfare, maybe that's just his view of what's right and what's wrong. And it's good for us because he is not general, he is not a military man, he is a spy, and spies have some different, I'd say, view of the world. So maybe that's the reason.
Okay, so you think that this annexation thing, the sham referendums and this inauguration or whatever we want to call it tomorrow, that's going to happen, the only reason you think for that is to stabilize the front line and claim the territories, and nothing more? Or is there a few other, things that could be achieved with this whole process?
First of all, as far as I know, Russian laws, current Russian laws forbids them to use mobilized person not on the territory of Russia. So to use mobilized persons on occupied Ukrainian territory, so you need first of all to proclaim them a part of Russia. That's the first reason I can guess. The second reason I can guess, well, it sounds really stupid for me, but I read an article of Medusa. That's a news outlet, Russian news outlet, opposition news outlet. I'm a bit skeptical, of course, about any Russian outlet. However, they are telling us that 3 sources in the Russian government told Medusa that Putin believes after these lands will be proclaimed a Russian territory, Ukraine won't dare to attack. It's absolute bullshit. It's absolute crap. But still, as far as I see from my own experience and from the experience of all my country, Putin could believe in absolute crap. Well, the whole war began because he believed in absolute crap. So maybe that's the reason number 2 here. It's idiotic for me, but maybe it's not idiotic for him.
Well, we hear speculations that actually Putin might not be in control anymore, with this government and military. And there are, talks that there's a collective Putin, which is basically pressuring, Putin to do some things. Do you think that's possible, looking at the whole, I don't know, structure and history of this aggressive neighbor of yours?
I don't think so. Really, I don't think so. The version that Putin is actually micromanaging himself seems more likely to me, because that's how Russia works. I don't suppose, some kind of clique could run a government there only if Putin is terminally ill or physically not in the condition to do anything. I don't believe it's so for now. So I believe that it's himself. That's not some kind of combination of different, I don't know, points of power, blah, blah, blah. I suppose it's himself, and absolute idiocy of what's going on the front line. Well, it's just one of the symptoms that it's actually one mad person.
Okay, so there is another hypothesis, that I think yesterday I heard from one of the commentators online that this mobilization for Putin or for collective Putin, doesn't matter, but basically is a tool to actually control his own population, so they don't start, protests or gatherings, so he can gather them up front and basically direct them, or at least keep them mobilized, in some tents or without tents, just camping in the rain. What do you think of this like mobilization, deeper, reasons, or is it absolutely unlikely?
I suppose it could be a reason. However, if it was, it failed. The plan is failed just because the result is completely different. Of course, I know that any system on some stage of the decay of its system can make all the decisions that actually make the situation worse. We in Ukraine seen that during the reign of Yanukovych, during the second Maidan, Euromaidan, because actually every decision that Yanukovych and part of region made about Maidan and its control, it was actually made situation much worse for them. That's because all their curriculum was so decayed and so unoperational that they couldn't actually decide to do anything normal. Maybe that's so in Kremlin. If it is so, maybe they really wanted to control the population by this mobilization. However, we can clearly see that it's going in absolute opposite directions. They already have a number of civil unrest, and what's more interesting, they have a number of civil unrest in some national republic, first of all, Dagestan. And that's, I think it's beautiful.
Okay, so let's talk about the weapons. Obviously, we all heard that, the HIMARS, quantity is increasing. What is the situation, in your opinion, in terms of the weaponry, in Ukraine? Are you capable of, fighting properly, liberating the territories that, with what you have, or this land lease, which theoretically has to start in a few days, is actually very needed?
Well, the news about HIMARS in Ukraine was something funny, because it was like, we will send you 18 HIMARS. Ukrainians, oh! Americans, in 2 years. Ukrainians, well, that's basically the situation. Many of the weapons and the HIMARS, as you mentioned, are going to get to Ukraine in years. And that's cool, but it's not helping us here and now. But
are you absolutely sure? Because like everybody is cheering that it's coming now, and you're saying it's coming in 2 years. So
these 18 HIMARS, there was official comment from United States administration that is not the HIMARS that they got already deployed, but the HIMARS that only should be produced. And it's cool, but it will be cool a bit later. That's the problem.
So then I will ask differently. What is coming right now, or is it unclear?
First of all, as I know, a number of anti-aircraft guns, anti-aircraft defense, and that's cool. That's cool because that's needed. Russians begin to desperately use their aviation more and more, and that's good for us because they already losing their pilots, because our anti-aircraft system is already effective, but we want more, and we need something to counter these pesky Iranian drones. It's not such a problem because these drones is not some kind of Wunderwaffe Russians told us, but it is sometimes it's it's like something like Palestinian rockets that hit from Gaza. It's cheap, not really precise, but it's annoying. It's really annoying, and we need something to, first of all, to save our not even military, but our civilians, because these drones frequently hit civilian targets. That's said.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So probably the next thing I'll have to ask you, because it's still a big thing, around the media, is the escalation in terms of nuclear, and what would happen, how would they do, how would the response go? What do you think about this possibility, and if it would happen, what do you think it would look like?
I beg my pardon, nuclear?
Yeah, nuclear.
Oh, that's a difficult question. To know that, we need to know how mad Putin really is, and we are not his psychiatrists. So it's hard for us to tell. Theoretically, Russia has some strategy to use its nuclear weapon, and in this strategy, they should first of all hit some some empty space, like a warning. Secondary, to hit some infrastructure point, and thirdly, can begin to attack some place where there are many people. However, I don't think I still don't think they will do that, because even the conventional response from a number of countries can be too disastrous for them. As Ben Hodges told, do you know that we can actually sink Black Sea Fleet in an hour using conventional means? That's true. They can, and they can do that with Baltic Fleet too, in the same hour.
Well, the Baltic Fleet is actually nothing, to be concerned with. It's like it's nothing, because the whole Baltic Sea is under the NATO control. So what can they do there?
Still a good target practice.
Yeah.
So for Russia, it could be disastrous even without the answer. With also use of tactical nuclear. And the thing that I think is a good deterrent is the position of Asian countries, first of all, because from my perspective, Asian countries is even more interested in keeping the nuclear taboo up than European countries, because there are a number of countries in Asia that have nuclear weapons and hating each other too much.
Yeah, like Pakistan and India. Yeah, absolutely.
And India and China also have and India and Pakistan also have the best, and Pakistan and China also has not the best relations in the world. So from my perspective, the destruction of this nuclear taboo could be disastrous, first of all, for Asia. And Asia, not only the main partner of Putin for now, it's actually the only partner he can theoretically got. Well, of course, we don't talk about Nicaragua or Central African Republic because that's cool for Russians. They are their funds, but it's nothing to pick up here. I suppose that these factors will keep them from this suicidal move. However, I can also say that in Ukrainian case, it could sound a bit I don't know, like bravado, but it won't stop us. Or using of tactical nuclear against Ukraine not only won't stop us, but I suppose that will make us a bit more aggressive.
Yeah, of course, but we heard some calculations what would happen, let's say if it would land on a big city like Kiev or Odessa. So that is that is not even pleasure to think about it. So it's absolutely a tragedy. Could be, in terms of lives lost and everything else lost.
Well, my family is in Kiev, so of course I am worried. I worry, but well, when the war started, all of us understood that any time any rocket can fall from the sky. It could be not a nuclear rocket, but if it hits you in the head, it's not
Doesn't
a
matter.
big difference for you. So after, well, my home was already bombed. Two of my units, two of my barracks were already destroyed by Russian longer-range rockets. So what actually should I afraid? Well, they already shelling us with everything they got. Okay, they could use nuclear, but well, the gas from nuclear doesn't really differ from the gas from I don't know, mortar or caliber rocket or whatsoever. So that's just the thing we get used to, I suppose.
Okay, Victor. So just before we let you go, we have to ask you about the Kherson, and maybe some of your prognosis, for what's going to happen in weeks to come. So first about the Kherson, what is going on there? Is it how likely, we see Kherson, in liberated in the hands of Ukraine? Let's say, in a month or something like that.
That's hard for me to tell, just because I know that the Kherson for us is the most fierce and the most I don't know, most fierce fighting going there for us, and the most casualties are also in Kherson Oblast. So we're doing our best. However, in Kherson Oblast, Russian got really a number of defense lines, and it's real defense lines, not like in Kharkiv Oblast. So it's difficult for us and it's costly for us. However, I suppose that we are eager to take it. They still have these problems with supplies. And sooner or later, I think we will finish this job there, and I think we will finish it in this year, not in the next. Well, I hope so.
Okay, so what can we expect? We are hitting the October in a few days. What do you think, like in terms of the weather change, and the new supplies and the situation on both sides? What can be like realistically expected to happen, in this upcoming month?
Well, war continues, but some moments change. We won't have so we call Zelenka. We will can green trees, and this will limit the actions of a number of troops, like my favorite special operation forces. And the roads will be in mud and then in snow. That will actually limit all the transportations. I suppose the Russians have the bigger transportation problems than that we saw. That's actually gives us some kind of advantage. However, there's even for us there's still a problem to launch a major offenses during mud season or snow season, so it will be tricky for both sides. We will see. The beginning of war was actually in winter season. However, I don't know. That's also a question of effective supplies. For now, Ukrainian army has some problems with winter uniform, and the Russian army, as well as I know, have a great problem with winter uniform. So that's also about that. So let's take this chance and let's see what it will become.
All right, Victor. So we let you go because, it's easier for us here on the sofas, a bit more complicated for you. So it's always a pleasure to hear you. And, hopefully we can do an episode in a few weeks and, have some good news. Hopefully the cigar that I promised in the last episode, we can smoke. I'm going to keep your company on this one. So, okay. So, Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава.